If you're looking for a podcast that packs in sound property advice, as well as offering you an insight into making the world of property effective and ultimately work for you, you're in the right place. Hosted by Arsh Elahi, the original property rebel. He's written an Amazon bestseller, created the Property Investor app, the UK's first, and is an experienced property mentor. More importantly, he talks the talk and walks the walk.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Property Rebel with your host, Arsh Elahi. And in today's session, I'm going to be sharing a story with you of an incident as to what happens when things don't really go your way. This story may scare you, may actually make you think twice, or both. But believe it or not, that's okay. And more importantly, these are the things that no other podcast will share with you. More importantly, they won't teach you this at landlord school or any of the expensive training courses that you may or may not have attended. So before we go into that, I want to give you a quick hello, quick thank you for your continued support. If you're a new listener, new subscriber, hello. If you're one that's coming back to listen for more, welcome back. As always, this is a one-take edit, which means that there's no fancy recording, no fancy editing. As you hear it is how it's been recorded. There will be some ifs, ums and ahs, but believe it or not, that's okay. So let's get moving on. People think that I've got quite an easy time in property, but believe me, it's not always easy. I have some really good days. I have some really bad days, and no doubt you will too. Because anyone that says that property is high five, making money every single day, literally, and putting it bluntly, is lying to you. So I'm going to give you a story as to an incident, as to how it cost me thousands, if not tens of thousands of pounds. And more importantly, hopefully you'll take something away from this and think, well, hang on, before I let my property out to this person, have I done this check, and this check? So let's get moving on. Now, let's roll back the years, back to approximately 2005, 2006. I've got some commercial units, so they're not massive, they're not like industrial units or anything, they're just like little workshops, shall we say, in the heart of the Black Country in a little town called Willenhall. It's known for being a locksmith town. And I've got some little, when we're talking small, we're talking about 600 square feet, so really small industrial units or commercial units. And predominantly the people that have been renting these for the last few decades are people that are trying to set up like little mini car workshops or a little valeting section. So that gives you a kind of idea as to the kind of unit and the kind of usage that it gets. So for years and years, it's been running fine. Tenant comes in, they on average they last between 2 and 4 years, then they leave, then it's vacant for a few months, as it is with commercial property. We advertise it, and then we get another tenant, and then we go through the whole process. So that's been fine. Now, go back to, I can't remember the exact date, it is between 2005 and 2006. Unit was vacant, and it was vacant for a short period of time. I'm thinking best part 6 months. And as a result of that, someone contacted me. So how we previously used to advertise these properties, we used to have a big board on the outside of the building. It says commercial property to let, and it used to have my mobile number or office number on. It used to tell them how much it was a week. And because the unit was on a busy or like quite a busy main road, we'd get quite a bit of traffic passing by, and more importantly, we get lots of eyes on the board. So anyway, someone contacts us and he goes, hi, I've seen your board. I've seen that you've got a unit to let. Can you tell me how much it is? Blah, 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 what's included? And so we go through the process and he goes, okay, can I have a viewing? So I met this guy. Let's just call him George for the purpose of this story. By the way, that's not his real name. So George comes along and he views it and he goes, I really like the unit. And he goes, yeah, I'm happy to take it on. He goes, I'm happy to take it on initially for a 6-month term. Normally on an industrial unit or commercial unit, we try to do a minimum of 12 months. But because we hadn't let it for a short period, I was being a little bit flexible with the terms. That's rule number 1. Don't deviate away from your rules. So I get lots of people that come to me and say, Arsh, can we let it for a month? Can we let it for 3 months? Now, my response is, sorry, no, it's 12 months or nothing. So anyway, so he came along and we negotiated initially. We negotiated a couple of weeks rent free whilst he got this unit up to a required standard that he wanted it for. And as a result of that, we agreed that he was going to do it initially for 6 months. There, straight away, I did two things that I would never do. I negotiated a rent-free period, and second of all, I moved away from the terms that I originally would normally do. But I thought, hey, if this helps him, let's see how this works. And then, so moving on, he moves in, he pays, he gives me all his ID. So he gives me his passport, gives me his driving license, gives me his utility bill. I checked to see that this was a true reflection, put the passport against his face. Yes, it looked like him. Driving license, put it against his face. Yes, it looked like him. I looked at the address on the driver's license. I looked at the address on the utility bill. It all matched up. I had no reason to think otherwise. I thought, I've got two documents which are bona fide government documents, driving license, passport, and then I've got a utility bill. Everything matches. What is there not to like about this person? He gave me a month's rent up front. He gave me a month's rent as a deposit. I had a 6-month tenancy in place. What else would you need to do? On a standard tenancy, now you tell me, what else would you need to check? It was a new startup company, so he's acting as almost like a sole trader, so there wasn't really any history that you could kind of check on. He owned his property. The property, let's just say for this purpose, was in Newcastle. It's not, but let's just say it is. So he owns his property. So I thought, yes, we've got a good level of security. He's taken it in his personal name. If he owns his own property, yeah, we've got something to fall back on. Right, moving on. Now, the tenant decided that every week or every fortnight, I'd collect the money off him either in cash or he would pay it into my bank. So we give our tenants our bank details and they can put the money into our bank. So there'll be some weeks where he would text and said, can you collect the cash? Or the money is here. There'll be some weeks where he'd pay the month in advance into the bank. So there is some trading history there. Moving on. So everything was working fine. Didn't hear from the tenant. Had no issues, and a rent was collected or the rent was deposited as per the tenancy terms. Anyway, I get a call, and I remember this because it was the afternoon, approximately 2 o'clock. And I get a call from an unknown number. Now, if you get a phone call from an unknown number, really, there's only one real person that's going to be. It's going to be the police station. And kind of, I know when I've got a withheld or unknown number that there's a very high chance that it is a police officer or police, someone from the police station trying to get hold of me to inform me about something. Normally I get a lot of these calls, I used to get a lot of these calls in the evenings from any time from 8 o'clock onwards, when there would be some antisocial behaviour, or when a tenant or when the police officer was trying to get hold of a tenant, and they normally go between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning because that's when they perceive them to be in bed. Not anymore, should I add. Right, so moving on. Get a call and pick up the phone. I was outside someone's house about to go and view their property because even back then I've got a company called We Buy Properties Fast. This was someone that called me and said, Ash, would you like to come and have a look at my property? I was literally sat outside their property. Get a call from this number, withheld number. It says, hi, are you Mr. Ilahi? I go, yes, I am. My name is PC from this police station. And I said, okay, officer, how can I help? Always very polite. And he said, well, we've got an incident that we need to report you of. And I said, okay, how can I help? And he goes, do you own unit number 1 at such and such a place in Willenhall? I go, yes, I do. He goes, we've just been to the unit and we've just done a raid on the unit. And we've taken away a substantial amount of cannabis plants from that unit. I said, oh, okay. And he goes, do you know anything about this? I said, I know that the unit is occupied and it has been occupied for quite a few months. I've got all the tenants' details at the office. If you want me to come along to the police station, more than happy to do so and provide you with all the information and help you with your inquiry. He goes, we'd like you to do that. So initially they were informing or offering me to come into the station. I said, okay, well, I'm currently about to go into a meeting. I said, would you mind if I come in the morning? And then kind of tone changed. And he said to me, he goes, Mr. Ilahi, if you're not in the police station within 2 hours of this phone call, he goes, I'm going to send a warrant out for your arrest. I thought, okay, that's interesting. Why have we suddenly gone down into a dark corner? Why 1 minute I was talking about assisting them, next minute he's talking about sending out a warrant for my arrest? I thought, okay, is it? And I asked him, I said, is there something that I need to know here? I said, because I've already told you that the unit is tenanted. He goes, no, we need to clarify some facts. I need you within the station within 2 hours, or alternatively, I will send people out to come and collect you, or I will put a call out for your arrest. I said, okay, I will be there within 2 hours. Unfortunately, I had to make my apologies to the person that I was going to view because I was approximately 20 minutes away from the office. So I was conscious that I had to go back to the office. I had to pull out a load of paperwork. Then I had to go to the police station, which was approximately 30 minutes away from the office. So there's I wanted to make sure that I was within the 2 hour time frame. Anyway, went back to the office, pulled out all the paperwork in a bit of a panic, admittedly, because I thought, okay, something heavy is going on here. Went to the office. I should note at this point, and mistake number 2, I didn't take any legal representation. I thought, well, I'm going to go and straight away just answer their questions, come out of it, and hopefully they're then going to start chasing the culprit for this incident. So didn't go with any legal representation, turned up to the police station straight away. As soon as I walked in, went straight into an interview room, and I was put in the caution. So, you do not need to say anything, but anything that you do say will be blah, blah, blah against your defence, whatever it may be. You know what they say, what they used to say on the bill. Does anyone still watch the bill, by the way? Is it still on? But anyway, I thought, okay, this is interesting. They asked the question, do you want legal representation? And at that point, I still rejected it. I said, no, I think I'm fine. Don't need to. Let's carry on with the conversation. So anyway, we went through the interview. They asked what did I know of the unit? How long had I owned the unit? Who was currently resident of the unit? Have I got any ID? And luckily, I took all the files with me. So I gave them the tenancy agreement, I gave them the ID, I gave them the statement showing all the rents that had been collected, whether it had been cash, whether it had been direct debit. And I thought, you know what, I walked out of there thinking, I was in there for approximately 2 hours. I thought, you know what, okay, that's fine. I've gave them all information. There's nothing really here more that I can add to this. And so they said, okay, we're going to do some further inquiries, and then never heard anything from it for approximately, I think, about a month. In the meanwhile, I had to go and get the unit rectified. I went and had a look inside the unit. The unit was an absolute mess. So they've ripped off the metal door shutters, so we had to get those secured the same day. On top of that, inside the unit, you could see that there was quite a sophisticated cannabis farm that had been in there. So there's lots of folders, lots of holes, lots of fans. If you've never been inside a room or a house where cannabis farm has been operating, they do a lot of damage. They do a lot of damage. I understand why he wanted a unit, because the unit has 3-phase electricity supplies, which means that it's got sufficient power to hold the fans, to hold the lighting and everything that goes around with it. Mistake number 3. When I handed over the unit to him, the utilities supplies were still in my name. I must have forgot to change them into my name. Even though I took all the readings, my office or I did not change them into my name. So from the police's point of view, they said, well, Mr. Ilahi, we're checking here, and said that the electricity, there's no gas, the electricity is still in your name. I said, yes, but here's a photo of the date. And luckily it was date stamped, because we have them date stamped when we take them on our phones. And here's the copy of the readings. But it goes, but you didn't put it across. And I said, you know what, unfortunately, hands up, my mistake. We would normally call the utility supply and give those details. But we've got the tenancy agreement, we've got all the ID, we've got the rent statements. And then, so I got a call back a month later and said, Mr. Ilahi, we'd like to have another chat with you. Can you come into us? I said, yeah, happy to do so. And again, I went without legal representation. Again, another mistake. Because now the conversations started to get a little heavier. They're saying, well, we've checked out the person that you've suggested. The tenancy agreement, the identification, we've gone to the address that you've listed. And I said, okay. I said, have you met George? Remember, the person's name's George. And they go, we come across a person. His name is George, but he said that he's never, ever stepped foot in Willenhall, ever. I said, right. I said, but if that was the case, how did I get his ID? How did I get a copy of his passport? More importantly, how did I get a copy of his signature on my documents? So I really couldn't see the logic of the police right now, because they were starting to say to me that this person that I supposedly put forward to them does exist, lives at the address that I provided them with, but that person is proclaiming never to step in Wolverhampton because he is a couple of 100 miles up the road in Newcastle. And more importantly, they started to question, why would he want a unit in Newcastle? Why would he want a unit in Willenhall, 200 miles away from where he lives in Newcastle? So they started to track it back to me. Said, Mr. Elahi, we saw that you went to the unit on these occasions. Why was that for? And I said, I went there to collect the rent. And if you refer back to my rent statements, here's the dates that correspond with what you've said that I was to collect the rents. So now they're trying to say that I had an involvement in setting up the cannabis farm. I thought, oh God, okay, this is going horribly wrong. First, what I thought was just letting out to a person to use as some form of car usage. Now it's been converted into a cannabis farm. Cannabis farm has been raided. As a result of that, now they're trying to frame me for it. So straight away, I said, I'll tell you what, I now want legal representation. So what they did, they put the interview on hold. They put me on bail. They asked for my passport. They detained my passport. They made sure that, they also made sure that I could not leave the country or go anywhere. So it's not like a tag, but it was kind of surreal. And at this point, I started to panic a little bit. I thought, what the hell is going on here? And you see these programs where, someone is wrongfully arrested. Next thing you know, they're in the court. And then you think, okay, what's going on here? So I said, no, okay, I want legal representation. I want my solicitor to act for me. So they put me on bail. I then went to my solicitor. I then started speaking to them and saying, guys, okay, my guy, Gulam, very, very good. And he went through it. He goes, Arsh, he goes, don't worry about this. He goes, I'm going to get this squashed for you in no time. First thing that we need to do, we need to get a copy of all the recordings of all the interviews. We need to get all the documents that they've suggested. We need all the conversations. So he requested the whole file from the police station. He got that and he wrote back to him and said, guys, for this reason, this, and this, I think you've got the wrong person. Please drop your charges against my client, which is me. They refused to drop. And then I had to go for 7 more bail hearings whilst they tried to create a case against me. And it was absolutely, if I'm honest, I was panicking. I had sleepless nights. I really didn't know where it was going. I also started to rack up quite hefty legal bills. Every time I went for a bail hearing, the solicitor attended just in case they decided to spot interview me. And at the point of conclusion, the cost of it was £15,000 in legal costs, plus approximately between £10,000 and £15,000 of damage to the unit. So bear in mind that the rent of the unit, let's say it was £100 a week. That's £5,200 for a year. But bear in mind that it was probably only in there the best part of 8 months. So in there, we've collected the best part of £5,000 in rent. I'm now in a hole of £30,000. How does this make financial sense? They say that property is meant to be financially free. At the moment, I'm in financial deficit. So how does this work? Does this make sense? Does this make sense? So in that respect, I was in a difficult position. Anyway, after 8 bail hearings, the police finally said to me, Mr. Elahi, we're no longer going to take the case further. You're free to go. So they stopped the bail. They handed me back my passport. And it was a very distressing time. Very, very distressing time. I was relieved. If I'm honest, I was very relieved that it all come to an end. I was very disappointed in the way that the police handled me. More importantly, I was quite disheartened with the fact that I was pretty much £30,000 down. So where would you go with that? Now, the reason why I'm telling you this story is because this could happen to anyone. If you've got a house and someone lets the property off you, they could give you all the ID, but if they then go off and set up a cannabis farm, how do you protect yourself? It can happen in a room, it can happen in a flat, it can happen in a house, it can happen in an industrial unit. How many times have you heard the horror stories of cannabis farms being set up in houses? More importantly, I was quite fortunate in the fact that I could afford the 15,000 legal bill plus the other costs. Now, if you've only got 1 or 2 houses and you've then come up with a £15,000 or £30,000 bill and you're only collecting 5,000 in rent, would that have sent you under? So I suppose the lessons from the stories, there's lots of lessons from the stories. First of all, if the police ask you to go in and first thing you should ask them is that, am I going in under interview? If you are, get legal representation. Because I suppose if I went under legal representation from, number 1 and 2, I could have probably got this squashed a lot sooner. I think I did everything correct other than changing the utilities over to my name. I took the correct documentation. I checked everything out. So what else can I do other than that? What other checks do you do? So I've been very stringent. I've been very, very tough on my tenants ever since to make sure that we don't fall into that loophole again, or we don't fall into that pitfall again, because I don't want to keep shelling out £15,000 on legal costs. So guys, hopefully you've enjoyed that story. I appreciate that it's not the upbeat story that I'm normally used to telling, but more important, I think it is an important message for you guys to take away from it, that it's not all roses out there in property. Bear in mind that obviously this happened a long time ago in 2005, 2006, but it's always something that stuck with me. So just be careful out there. When you're taking on tenants, even when you've got a letting agent and stuff, just make sure that you vet your tenants correctly, because one poor tenant can cost you a lot of money. So guys, hopefully you've enjoyed the session. Hopefully you've taken something away from it. More importantly, if you want some more real life stories like this, I've got loads. I can tell you story after story after story. They actually call me Jack and Nori. So if you like those, please comment below, or please reach out to me. You can email me if you want. Email my assistant admin@arshilahi.com if you want to have a further chat, you want to have a chat about something that's going right or wrong in your property journey. As always, if you want to connect with me on social media, you can do by finding me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter and Instagram under Arshilahi. More importantly, if you like free education and you want further information like this, I've got quite a vibrant YouTube channel. It's called Arshilahi. And what you can do, go to YouTube, type in Arshilahi, and you'll see that we'll release a video every Thursday at 4 p.m. Finally, if you haven't already done so, have you downloaded the Property Investor app? It's the UK's first property investment marketplace, which showcases all kinds of deals all over the UK. So below market value deals, rent to rent deals, lease option deals, commercial deals, land opportunities, just to name a few. All you have to do is go to either our website, propertyinvestorapp.co.uk, or alternatively, you can go to the App Store. So regardless whether you're on iOS or Android, go to the App Store and type in Property Investor. It takes you 2 minutes to download, completely free, and you've got all the deals in the palm of your hand. So guys, on that note, as always, in these tough times, I wish you to be safe, well and happy, and I look forward to speaking to you all very soon. Thank you and bye-bye.
The large majority of people make a positive change if they take immediate action. So act now. Download the Property Investor app and join Arsh on his social media channels to excel your property journey.